Hello, and welcome to another episode of the TexMix. My name is Jessica Montoya Coggins, and I'm so delighted to be joined today by Reverend Erika Forbes.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Reverend. Thank you so much for joining us today on the TexMix brought to you by Texas Signal. So first off, Reverend, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Texas?
Sure. So I actually am a native Californian, but moved to Texas, as we like to say, as fast as I possibly could. And I started an independent spiritual community that was an interfaith community, so all faiths. And I did that in San Antonio for 7 years. And my background is as a reproductive justice volunteer, championer, whatever term you want to call it, in various ways. But when I came to Texas as part of my ministry, I spoke very openly about the 2 abortions I had. And as you can imagine, first of all, a woman on a pulpit, starting her own church, talking about abortion, it wasn't long before the word got out. And I ended up sitting on a panel. And at that panel, there was someone who worked for Texas Freedom Network, and they asked me to come and work for them on issues around reproductive freedom and justice. And I said yes.
Great. Yes. Reverend Forbes is the Outreach and Faith Manager at the Texas Freedom Network. And today we are going to be discussing abortion and what is currently going on in Texas. As a lot of y'all know, this has been a topic that we've covered extensively at Texas Signal, especially in light of Senate Bill 8. So I know that you were actually up in my neck of the woods in Dallas in August talking about something called the Reproductive Freedom Congregation Designation. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And that is our sort of, I don't want to say signature program, but it is the program that I was a part of initiating. And it actually came out of the 2013 filibuster. During that time, Texas Freedom Network has been known for their work around issues around social justice. But during that ledge session, and as many know, I'm sure, that was the infamous filibuster with then Senator Wendy Davis. And after that, there were a group of concerned citizens, advocates, people who really understood the importance of organizing people of faith and clergy all year round, not just when it was time to testify. And so they asked Texas Freedom Network to help them organize clergy. And out of that came a strategy. And out of that strategy came the idea of reproductive freedom congregation designation. Many people know it as, it's modeled after during the early 90s, late 80s, when the LGBTQ community started focusing on welcoming and affirming churches. And as a result of that, the culture change that we saw where LGBTQ were the law of the land allowed to get married, that was a result of culture change that started in churches and congregations. And so we understood that if we were going to create lasting culture change and change the way people think about abortion, we had to start in congregations. And so we developed a designation, the first of its kind in the country, where congregations come together to focus and vote on being a designated congregation. And the way they do that is by committing to 3 simple principles. The first principle is that you will trust and respect women. The second principle is that a woman will not be shamed, stigmatized, or judged for her reproductive choices, including abortion, and that you believe that health care is a moral and social good. Those are the 3 commitments that we ask congregations to agree to. Now, in order to get to those 3 commitments, we ask that you do some deep work. We have everything from congregations that do classes that we present on abortion plus faith, or compassionate care, or faith 101, or reproductive justice and what it means. And then we ask congregations to live out their designation in a number of ways that works for them, because every congregation is different. Well, this designation has become extremely popular, obviously, since SB 8. But prior to that, we had been working for the last 2 years, rolling it out to congregations and really moving on to the designation. For many congregations, we were able to get 25 designated congregations, and that is even with a global pandemic where, basically churches were closed. So we would have probably had more had it not been for that. We had to move to online, which is very different. But this designation has been so powerful, and we believe that culture drives politics, and policy is shaped in our church communities, regardless of what we think, and faith affects it all. So, as you can imagine, once SB 8 was rolled out, we have had over 100 people on our beginning calls twice a week. 100 congregations looking to have this designation, and it has gained the attention on a national level, and we'll probably be rolling it out nationally in 2022.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed. About 2 weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and the impact that Senate Bill 8 has had is, I don't think the lawmakers who enacted it could have expected it, but I have heard from people around the country, people checking in, just, texting like, hey, you're in Texas, how's it going?
Oh yeah, I have family constantly saying, are you okay? How are you handling it? And quite frankly, I have been ready for this ever since I had my first abortion at 14 and started volunteering. This has been my life, reproductive justice work. And this reproductive freedom congregation designation is, I've seen how conversations happen, how congregations change, how the pastor changes, and how they become advocates for women. And I know that this is a powerful way in which we can create one voice for justice.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, one of the most impactful things is I actually grew up pretty religious. I was raised Catholic, have many disagreements with the church currently, but I was very religious growing up. I was actually a Sunday school teacher, and it meant a lot to me to have a church community. And one of the things that I can't help but think about with Senate Bill 8 is how much it targets, because it is, the onus is on sort of people in the community to place lawsuits up to $10,000, as we've heard. And a lot of these targets could be people like yourself, people like counselors, people in the clergy. So how has that sort of impacted as you're going to various communities, trying to get them into this envelope of this congregation?
Well, my grandfather was a preacher, and I was raised by my grandparents, so very religious. And the last thing they thought I would be is a minister. But I have to tell you that I took a vow as a licensed ordained interfaith minister to care and comfort those in pain and suffering. And that vow supersedes any law. And I hold that to be the most sacred duty. Part of my work, I have a private practice where I work with women who are in the reproductive justice decision-making process. And quite frankly, this affects them in ways that you can't even imagine. There are young people that text me, that have texted me, talking about how hard it was to even get to the clinic in Fort Worth. The idea of trying to get to a clinic outside the state is impossible. Where are they going to get the money? How are they going to get a hotel room? They don't even know how to do that. How do they catch a bus out of state? We're talking about 16-year-olds. And it is disproportionately impacted people of color. And So we need congregations to show up, to rise up. We need clergy now more than ever to speak out, speak up and speak out. And during the 60s, we had clergy consultation services, which was a group of clergy that basically developed an underground sort of system to help women get access to safe abortions. And while we no longer have to have that because there are systems in place, we talk about integration. And I want to push forward the idea of bringing people of faith and people that are atheist and agnostic into working and supporting the reproductive orgs as a way to help them, supporting them, whether that is helping them escort women, because there are organizations who have been doing this for a long time to get their safe abortions. We talk with clergy. Forbes recently put out an article that said that of the top 10 subjects that pastors and clergy don't want to talk about, the number one subject is reproductive justice. That's the number one subject, more than any other subject. Anything below the neck and above the knees, just don't want to talk about it. And so part of our work is to help clergy begin to find language, begin to wrestle with their own stories. Everyone has a reproductive story. Men, women, religious, non-religious, all of us have a reproductive story. And our job is to help clergy learn how to take it out of the shadows and talk about it in a way that is non-confrontational, but is supportive of individualized expressions. And I mean, it's daunting work, but what else can we possibly do? Right now, we have this narrative that our opposition and those that are conservatives believe that we should not be able to make the safe and legal choices that we are meant to make. And I'm on a one-woman campaign to wrestle God back from the hostage situation in which some conservatives in our opposition have taken it. I don't believe they have a monopoly on God. And the God that I serve wants me and those that have to make those reproductive decisions to make them.
And I also can't help but notice that a lot of those lawmakers, they're the ones that, they look at what's happening at the border with immigrants migrants from Haiti and, don't see them as human. We don't have Medicaid expansion in Texas. We have some of the highest maternal mortality figures, especially for Black women.
Yeah.
Those are the same one.
And our opposition is pro-embryo. They are not pro-life, because you cannot be pro-life if you don't care about my life. You cannot be pro-life if you don't. I'm pro-life. I have 5 kids. So, 4 of which are from my fiance's family, and 1 that's mine. I'm pro-life because I believe in everyone's right to live their life according to what works for them, and to raise their children in a way that is safe, and to choose whether to have children or not. As a woman who had 2 abortions, my life would have been decimated. I would not have gone to school. I was 14. It would have been decimated. And this law right now is not making any exceptions for rape or incest. And for someone like me who supports just listening to a woman or holding her hand as she makes her decision. I'm not making the decision. I'm just a place where she can talk. I'm subject to civil suits. They're going to sue me just for listening. Mm-hmm. And that is reprehensible.
Mm-hmm. The way you are talking about your role as a faith leader and how it is so linked to reproductive rights and the right for any person to have an abortion, for me, it comes off as so eloquent and it makes perfect sense. But for many still, those 2 things, religion and abortion, those don't seem like they mix. So what would you sort of tell someone why it is so important for religious leaders and faith leaders to have that openness for this topic?
Right now, it is so important for clergy and religious leaders to have an open mind and an open heart, because our lives are at stake. And if it isn't the role of clergy to be available, to be a safe harbor, no matter what your religious affiliation is, and even those that are atheists understand the human value of life. A woman's life who already has a heartbeat, who already is trying to eke out some meager existence, if as a clergy you don't see the value in that, then I'm not sure what God you serve.
Mhm. What would you also say to someone? So, right now in Texas, we do have Senate Bill 8 on the books. They've also, just because our legislature couldn't get enough of this, they also have another ban on medication abortion. But nationally, we're also seeing some very scary things. We do know that the Supreme Court is hearing a case that is a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade coming out of Mississippi. They're hearing that case in December.
December 1st, yeah.
Yeah. So what would you tell anyone who is, frankly scared right now? And how would you, I know, because you are a faith leader, how would you kind of sort of steer them maybe to not feel so hopeless?
Well, the first thing I would say is that whenever the worst thing happens, you never have to be afraid of it again. And right now, Senate Bill 8, I mean, it is global. I've talked to press from Canada and from Germany. It is global. The global attention on what the bill means here in Texas. And so the worst has happened. So now we don't have to be afraid of it anymore because it's happened. And now our role is to take our anger, which is righteous anger, which is a tool, and our deep held conviction, and use it like a shield and like a weapon, not to destroy our opposition, but to fight back against what they are trying to impose. That we have to muster the deep courage, and that happens, as I like to say, courage is what happens when crisis is put upon you. And we are in a crisis. And so we have a deep reserve. And I know no matter what your socioeconomic background or your ethnic background, all of us come from ancestors that had to face adversity. And we can use that adversity to fight the fight that we must fight now. We no longer have the privilege or the luxury to be tired. We no longer have the privilege or luxury to rest in our fear. Now we must take it and use it as a tool. And I believe God placed the best things in life on the other side of terror. And so we have to get to the other side. And we can get to the other side, and we will get to the other side. I am confident of that. King said, the arc of justice is long, but it bends towards, the arc of moral justice bends towards good. And I believe that we are fighting the good fight. And I want to encourage every clergy person and every person of faith to know that you stand on good ground and to not back down no matter what. Because this fight, it's not for us. Really, I already benefited from people who fought the fight before me. I was able to get my abortion so I could have the life that I meant to live. This fight that we're fighting right now is for our grandchildren. That's who we're fighting for. It is our obligation, our duty, and our responsibility to fight with everything that we have, just like people fought for us. Nothing less than that. So when we get up and we say, I'm tired, we have to remember that there's some little girl out there who needs us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked the image of the shield as well. It brought like a Captain America Avengers vibe to it, where right? We are definitely on the side of the Avengers. So for folks who might have a congregation out there who wants to join the reproductive freedom
Designation?
designation. Yes, the designation. How can they go about starting that?
I'm glad you asked. So every week, twice a week, we have what's called a Just Texas Designation webinar. And you can go to our website, we are Just Texas TX, and put your name in. You'll get a list of all of the webinars that we have. You just show up for one, and we will go through the whole process, answer any questions, and then from there, we will direct you into what to do next, which is really simple, which is a church meeting. We ask everybody to attend the webinar, and then we walk you through the process of finding out if you're ready to become a designated congregation. So the first step is to sign up on our website and go to a webinar.
Great. And I guess my last question, because I think you brought up a good point about how abortion has this stigma, even though it is healthcare. The actress Uma Thurman had an op-ed that she published recently, and her circumstances it's obviously very different than many women who need an abortion at this time. But I was struck by how at the time she felt such shame, and then I think as she got older, she realized, there's power in telling this story. So for anyone out there who does feel that maybe twinge of shame, what would you say to them?
I would say it is absolutely natural and normal to feel all the emotions when you have an abortion, or when you're faced with a choice for surgery or a procedure at any time, no matter what. So you can feel those feelings, but you don't have to let those feelings take you over. You can make a choice to say, I feel shame, I feel guilt, I feel uncertain, and allow those feelings to move through you, and then work towards justice so that other women can have the opportunity to have the life that they deserve to live. It's all right to feel something and still do the thing that you know is right for you. It's not only all right, but it's necessary. And not everybody is going to speak out about their abortion. For many, it's a private matter. But for me, because having an abortion saved my life, I feel a certain sense of expectation from myself to talk about it, to tell those 14-year-old girls or those 18-year-old girls or those people that have to make those decisions at whatever age. It is your right to choose yourself, to act in your own best interest. The world is going to fight you, but you can't fight yourself.
Well, thank you so much to Reverend Erika Forbes for joining us today and letting us know about the Reproductive Freedom Congregation designation. I have finally gotten that phrase correct.
Right.
I think the third time was a charm. I know from your biography that in your spare time, which I do not think you have at the moment,
not that much,
that you do yoga and enjoy an occasional glass of red wine. So I'm hopeful at some point in the future there will be more time for both of those things.
I hope so too.
But yes, thank you so much to the Reverend for joining us. And again, you can go to We Are Just Texas TX if you can think of a congregation out there that would also like to join in this designation. And again, thank you so much for joining us on the TexMix for this very special episode. And we'll catch you on the other side.
Thanks.